On February 23, 2020, a young man stepped outside for a jog. No destination, no appointment, no reason to hurry. Just movement, just air in his lungs, just another afternoon. He wore running shoes, athletic shorts. His phone stayed behind. Nothing about him suggested danger. Nothing about him suggested crime. And yet, within minutes, he would be treated as a threat. Not stopped by police, not questioned by authorities, but chased, followed by men who decided, without evidence, that he did not belong where he was. Men who armed themselves, men who took the law into their own hands, men who believed suspicion was enough. What happened to Ahmaud Arbery was not a misunderstanding, it was not confusing, it was not self-defense. It was the deadly consequence of a belief deeply rooted in America, that a black man running must be running from something. For weeks after his death, nothing happened. No arrests, no charges, no urgency, and if not for a single piece of video footage, this story might never have reached the public at all. This is the story of Ahmaud Arbery, a man who went for a jog and never made it home. Before his name became a headline, before it became a chant, before it became a symbol. Ahmaud Arbery was a son. He was born on May 8, 1994, raised in Georgia, surrounded by family. He was energetic, strong, restless in the way athletes often are. Running was not new to him. It wasn't unusual. It wasn't symbolic. It was routine. Friends described him as friendly and polite, someone who spoke easily, someone who helped without hesitation. He had worked various jobs. He was figuring life out, like millions of young adults do. Ahmaud was not perfect, but he was human. He had plans. He had time. And on February 23, 2020, he had no idea that time was about to be taken from him. Running is one of the most ordinary acts imaginable. It requires no permission, no explanation, no justification, unless you are black. For black Americans, ordinary actions often come with unspoken risk. Walking, driving, shopping, standing still, jogging. Each action can be interpreted through suspicion, not because of behavior, but because of appearance. Ahmaud Arbery did not enter that neighborhood thinking he was in danger, but others saw him and immediately began asking the wrong questions. Who is he? Why is he here? What is he doing? Questions that were never asked of white joggers, never asked with the same urgency, never followed with weapons. This wasn't about crime. It was about perception. And perception, when fueled by bias, can become deadly. The Satilla Shores neighborhood in Brunswick, Georgia was quiet. Suburban, residential, unremarkable. In the months leading up to Ahmaud's death, rumors circulated about break-ins in the area, not arrests, not confirmed suspects, just rumors. And in the absence of facts, fear filled the gaps. Some residents began to believe they were under threat. And that belief did not come from evidence. It came from assumption. From the idea that a black man seen running must be connected to crime. That belief did not begin on February 23rd. It had been building quietly, waiting. On the day Ahmaud went for his jog, he passed a house under construction. Security footage later showed him entering briefly. He did not steal anything. He did not damage anything. He looked around, as curious people sometimes do. Then he left. That moment would later be used as justification. Not because it was criminal, but because it fit a narrative that required no proof, just suspicion. And that suspicion would be enough to set everything in motion. Ahmaud Arbery continued running. He had no idea he was being watched, no idea that decisions were being made about him, without his knowledge and without his consent. Two men had noticed him. They would soon arm themselves, get into a truck, and decide to pursue it. Not as law enforcement, not as witnesses, but as judge and executioner. Ahmaud Arbery continued running through the neighborhood. His pace was steady, unhurried, routine. Behind the scenes, something else was happening. Gregory McMichael, a former investigator for the local district attorney's office, noticed Ahmaud running past his home. Instead of seeing a jogger, he saw suspicion. He later claimed he believed Ahmaud matched the description of someone responsible for neighborhood break-ins, a claim that would never be supported by evidence. Gregory McMichael did not call 911 and wait. He went inside his house. He armed himself. He called his son, Travis McMichael. Travis grabbed a shotgun. The decision was made quickly. Not to observe, not to verify, but to pursue. They got into a pickup truck, and they went after Ahmaud Arbery. This was not law enforcement. This was not a sanctioned stop. It was vigilantism. Ahmaud Arbery was now being chased. At first, he may not have understood what was happening. A truck slowed near him, then sped up. It circled back. Another vehicle joined the pursuit. These were not police cars. There were no flashing lights, no sirens, only engines, only men, only weapons. Ahmaud changed direction. The trucks followed. For anyone being chased by armed strangers, fear is not irrational. It is instinct. Ahmaud ran because he was being hunted. The McMichaels attempted to cut Ahmaud off. They drove ahead of him. I stopped on the road. Gregory McMichael stood in the bed of the truck with a handgun. Travis McMichael stood near the front holding a shotgun. They shouted commands, but they had no authority to give orders. They were not police. They were not deputies. They had no warrant. Ahmaud was trapped. He turned. He ran another direction. Again, the truck followed. This was no longer a pursuit. It was containment. A third man, William Roddy Bryan, joined the chase. He followed in his own vehicle. At some point, Bryan began recording video on his phone, not to stop the chase, not to intervene, but to document it. That decision, to record, would later expose everything. But in that moment, it offered Ahmaud no protection. He was now being followed by multiple vehicles, all armed, all convinced they were justified. The chase came to an end on a residential road. Travis McMichael stood in front of his truck, shotgun in hand. Ahmaud approached. What happened next lasted seconds. Ahmaud attempted to move past him. A struggle followed. Gunshots rang out. Ahmaud Arbery fell to the ground. He had been shot multiple times. He was 25 years old. His body lay in the street. The jog was over. The police arrived. Statements were taken. The men involved claimed self-defense. They said they were trying to make a citizen's arrest. They said Ahmaud attacked first, and initially their story was accepted. No arrests were made. Ahmaud Arbery was treated as the suspect, even in death. The men who chased him went home. They slept in their beds, and the system did nothing. Ahmaud Arbery's killing was over. But the injustice was just beginning. For weeks, his family waited for answers, for accountability, for action. None came. It would take a video seen by the entire world to force the truth into the light. In the days after Ahmaud Arbery was killed, the story did not move forward. It stalled. Local law enforcement reviewed the incident. Statements were collected, reports were written, and then nothing. No arrests, no charges, no urgency. Ahmaud Arbery's family asked questions. Why were the men who chased him still free? Why was their claim of self-defense accepted so quickly? Why was Ahmaud treated as the suspect, even after his death? The answers were vague. The explanations are inconsistent. Conflicts of interest soon became apparent. Gregory McMichael had previously worked for the local district attorney's office. Prosecutors recused themselves, one after another, citing professional relationships. Each recusal delayed the case further. Time passed, and with time came silence. In the absence of charges, a narrative took hold. Ahmaud Arbery was a criminal, that he was suspicious, that he had brought his death upon himself. This narrative did not come from evidence, it came from assumption. The men involved claimed they were conducting a citizen's arrest. They claimed they feared Ahmaud, but fear is not proof. Suspicion is not authority. Still, their version of events was accepted because it fit a familiar pattern. A black man, a white fear, a system willing to look away. For more than 2 months, Ahmaud's name faded from the headlines, and if the story had ended there, justice would never have come. In May 2020, everything changed. The video recorded by William Roddy Bryan was leaked. It spread quickly. Millions watched. For the first time, the public saw what Ahmaud's family had known all along. He was not attacking. He was running. He was not threatening. He was fleeing. The video showed armed men in trucks pursuing a man on foot. It showed escalation, not defense. The truth was no longer undeniable. Public outrage followed. Protests erupted. National attention focused on Brunswick, Georgia. And suddenly, the system moved. Just 2 days after the video went public, Gregory McMichael, Travis McMichael, and William Bryan were arrested. The charges were serious: murder, aggravated assault, false imprisonment. What had been deemed acceptable weeks earlier was now being called what it was, a crime. But for Ahmaud Arbery's family, the arrests came with mixed emotions: relief, anger, grief, because justice delayed is not justice denied, but it is never whole. The trial began in November 2021. Inside the courtroom, the defense returned to familiar ground. They argued fear. They argued with suspicion. They argued that Ahmaud did not belong. The prosecution focused on the facts: that no crime had been committed by Ahmaud, that the chase was illegal, that a citizen's arrest does not allow pursuit with weapons, that self-defense cannot be claimed by the ones who initiated the confrontation. The jury watched the video. Again and again, they listened to testimony, they examined evidence, and after days of deliberation, they reached a verdict. All 3 men were found guilty. Travis McMichael was convicted of murder. Gregory McMichael was convicted of murder. William Bryan was convicted of felony murder. The courtroom fell silent. Ahmaud Arbery's family wept. For the first time, the system acknowledged what had happened. But even then, the victory felt incomplete, because it required a video. Because it required national outrage. Because it required the world to watch. The men were later sentenced to life in prison. Federal hate crime charges followed. The court acknowledged that Ahmaud was targeted because he was black, but the broader question remained. Why did it take so long? Why did justice only arrive after exposure? Why did suspicion outweigh life until it couldn't? Ahmaud Arbery's death exposed something deeper than a single crime. It exposed the danger of vigilantism, the danger of racial assumptions, the danger of a system that hesitates when victims look a certain way. It showed how ordinary actions, like jogging, can become deadly when filtered through bias, and it showed how accountability often depends not on truth, but on visibility. Ahmaud Arbery did not choose to be a symbol. He chose to run. And that choice cost him his life. His story matters because it is not isolated. It exists alongside countless others where suspicion replaces evidence and fear replaces law. Where justice arrives late, if it arrives at all. Ahmaud Arbery did nothing wrong. He was not armed. He was not fleeing a crime. He was not dangerous. He was running, and for that he was chased, hunted, killed. This was not self-defense, it was a crime of hate. And the delay that followed was part of the crime. If stories like this mattered to you, subscribe to remember the ones history tried to erase.